In today's debt-driven economy, corporations have been expanding at an extraordinary pace, fueled by cheap loans and seemingly unlimited credit. On the surface, this model should benefit everyone: more production, more jobs, and higher wages. But in reality, the connection between corporate growth and tangible benefits for workers isn't as simple as it appears. Why is it that despite the booming corporate sector, so many working-class people are struggling with stagnant wages, job insecurity, and rising costs of living? Let's explore why debt-fueled corporate growth often fails the working class. At the heart of the debt-based economy is the idea of growth driven by borrowing. Cheap debt allows corporations to rapidly fund expansion, from building new factories to acquiring competitors. However, this quick growth is usually motivated by the desire to maximize profits for shareholders, rather than improving conditions for employees. The focus on expanding profit margins rarely translates into increased wages, job security, or better working conditions for the workforce. In fact, these rapid expansions often come at the expense of workers, as companies invest in automation and other cost-saving technologies that reduce the need for human labor. What's more, the promise of more jobs often turns out to be a myth, as the very systems that fuel growth also pave the way for job reductions in the long term. While cheap debt allows corporations to expand, the benefits for workers are often not realized. As companies grow, profits tend to flow towards shareholders, stock buybacks, and executive bonuses, leaving the average worker with little to show for the company's growth. Stagnant wages, limited job security, and a growing wealth gap are the harsh realities for the majority of employees. Even when corporations expand, they often choose to prioritize their shareholders' wealth over investing in their employees. This leaves workers in a cycle where corporate expansion does not lead to tangible improvements in their lives. Debt-driven growth also has an indirect effect on the working class: inflation. As companies take on more debt and the money supply increases, inflation becomes a real threat. The purchasing power of money decreases and prices rise, which erodes the value of savings. For the average person, this inflation makes it harder to afford basic necessities, despite the fact that nominal wages may remain the same. Housing prices, for example, soar as corporations borrow and invest, leading to unaffordable real estate for the working class. While asset inflation may benefit investors, it leaves low and middle-income families struggling to keep up with rising living costs. The promise of job growth often associated with debt-based corporate expansion is also misleading. Many of the new jobs created in a debt-fueled economy are low-paying, temporary, or part-time positions with little to no job security. Companies may opt for freelance, contract, or part-time workers to reduce costs and avoid providing benefits, like healthcare or retirement plans. This system leaves workers without stability in precarious employment situations that offer few long-term benefits. Instead of providing secure, full-time jobs, debt-driven growth often results in an unstable job market that fluctuates with the economy. When economic downturns hit, companies may downsize, leading to layoffs and a cycle of boom and bust that workers cannot control. But what if there were a different way? What if there was a system that prioritized growth in a way that benefited workers, ensured job security, and promoted real stability? An ownership-based economy could provide a solution. Instead of relying on debt to fuel growth, this model is based on real assets and capital, encouraging businesses to grow responsibly and sustainably. In this system, companies would fund expansions through equity investments or retained profits, rather than taking on large amounts of debt. By focusing on long-term sustainable growth, businesses would be more inclined to invest in their workforce, providing fair wages and job security. With less pressure to maximize short-term profits, companies could also focus on sustainable projects that provide real value over time. In an ownership-based economy, borrowing would be limited by actual capital, which would help control inflation and create a more stable money supply. This would prevent the kind of asset inflation that drives up housing prices and reduces the purchasing power of wages. With a stable economy, real wages would increase over time, and working-class families could enjoy better access to affordable housing, healthcare, and education. Moreover, an economy focused on ownership and real assets could lead to greater wealth distribution, as companies would be encouraged to reinvest in their employees rather than relying solely on external investors. The key difference between debt-driven and ownership-based economies lies in the incentives. A debt-based system incentivizes short-term profits, leaving workers behind. An ownership-based system, on the other hand, promotes long-term sustainability, fair wages, and economic stability. While the ownership-based approach might lead to slower growth, it would ultimately create a more balanced and fair economy that benefits everyone, not just the wealthy few. Shifting to an ownership-based system isn't without its challenges, of course. The growth rate may slow, and governments may need to prioritize spending more carefully. But these changes could lead to a more stable and resilient economy, where corporate growth no longer comes at the expense of the working class. This would encourage more responsible business practices and could reduce the cyclical nature of boom and bust economies that harm workers the most. In conclusion, the debate between debt-based and ownership-based economies highlights a crucial question. What kind of economy do we want to build? One that thrives on borrowing and speculative growth, or one that emphasizes sustainability, fairness, and stability for all? Debt-driven growth often fails the working class by promoting wealth concentration and job insecurity, while an ownership-based economy offers a more equitable path forward, focused on long-term stability and sustainable growth. It's time for a more balanced approach to economic policy, one that supports all members of society, not just the wealthiest. By embracing sustainable, ownership-driven growth, we can create an economy that works for everyone, providing security, opportunity, and prosperity for all workers. If you found this video thought-provoking, make sure to share it with your network, and let's continue the conversation. What do you think? Would an ownership-based economy work better for the future? Let us know in the comments below.